Last time, I believe we kind of began in the Free City, where Fancy had acquired us a ship, and Dimes got a letter, an invitation to a picnic in the central square. We were invited by the head mistress of Central Square, whose name was Carlotte?
Charlotte Farnsworth.
Charlotte. Okay. And there we got a lot of information about a lot of things we should look into once we're done with this whole little adventure here. Let's see. She also mentioned that the bandits here are quite very well equipped for normal bandits. They have managed to kind of overpower the golds in this area. And they're causing general trouble far worse than expected. And the Cloud Dragons had some kind of an adventure of their own. They're looking for some islands in the mist, right?
Yes.
Let's see. Other
Spec-
than that, yeah.
Specifically, to recap that, they were not only looking for islands in the mist, but also for the expedition that was initially going to do just that but disappeared.
Okay. So missing people as well. There was an interesting thing going on in Crimson Peak, which is not well too interesting, I guess, for people like us because it's mostly legal. As one of her friends, somewhat related to the enemy, got in some sort of legal trouble, accused by another, I think it's a son of the enemy, who's accusing him that let's see, what did he do? He killed some explorers, apparently. Or so, the accusations are. Could be an interesting place to visit for other reasons, I suppose, but that's a good reason as any to actually get there. Then, of course, there are the trouble in the Jewel Sand, where we already know about. And let's see, about a couple of days later, we boarded the ship and sailed off to the north, where we got attacked by some sort of combination between crocodiles and beavers. Uh, Two sailors died, which was regrettable, but the rest of us were saved, and there was a minor, I guess, hole in the ship, but that is taken care of. We're well, shipwrecked or anything. And then I believe is where Grimith took off. And Gilgalad, well, unable to find any really good time to, gather everybody together so far and kind of fed up with this whole situation, he decided to go ahead and share quite considerable information about his background and his origins. Unfortunately, I suppose Fancy may not have been paying fullest attention to
It's
that.
not as if Fancy was going to remember anyway.
Okay, that's fair enough. And after that, the rest of the people actually shared a few things about themselves, mostly Anrakin, I believe. And then we found an interesting little clockwork drake, which guided us to a somewhat secretive path up the mountains. Well, we took pretty much everybody who was gonna accompany us, and you know, and took the protection role, yes, of the caravan. And thankfully so, because a number of gnolls attacked us. Uh, Pretty much, yeah, I think it was almost an ambush, basically, if I remember correctly. And the noticeable thing was that they were using weapons and arrows, usual for their kind. Even more so, I believe it was mentioned that they are not really found much outside the desert. all people. After that, we traveled a little bit longer and reached Arden Crest, where we finally ended.
Telstra, sorry, but you're currently breaking up a lot.
Okay,
I don't know if there's anything you can do about that, but it's very hard to understand you currently.
I'm afraid I cannot really do much.
Just continue. Maybe it's gone now.
Okay, at which point did I break up? It was like
Just after the Knolls.
okay, so yeah, it's near the ending. Yeah, we continued up towards the top of the mountain, I believe, and we kind of reached the main city, village, town. I guess it's not really that big of a city, I believe. Which was C. Arden Crest proper, and actually we ended up there. We didn't actually go inside, I believe.
Yes. We ended the session basically as you clambered up the very last stairway up to a reasonably large plateau on which, well, rests Ardencrest proper. Ardencrest usually is a sort of catch-all name for all these little villages and communities that live here. But there's also Ardencrest as the actual capital in a sense, but it's really not that large of a town. It is located on a small plateau next to the peak of one of the mountains here, and really only contains a couple buildings. The first thing that you arriving there would of course see would be a small wall as well as a gatehouse, behind which, as you can see on the picture, a few rather large buildings, and of course the rest of the mountain just behind it. The gate and the walls, there do seem to be shapes moving about there, but the gates themselves are, well, not exactly unguarded and open, but certainly open and guarded. The people that have been traveling with you are visibly excited at this point, as the travel wasn't exactly, well, safe with the Noltador. But now it's there. The guide that Fancy managed to acquire, which ended up being a sort of mechanical contraption, really, with a bit of a mind of its own, but not really too talkative or alive. The little clockwork drake also seems to be somewhat excited, flying in circles a lot. And eventually, just before you reach the actual gate, it flies off. The guards at the gate and the wall don't really pose any questions or oppose you in any sort of way. In fact, they immediately come out and help those that look somewhat exhausted, perhaps even injured. Mostly perhaps the people you are accompanying and not you personally. You are strong people, you're enduring, you've seen worse things probably. And that's something that they can very much see. You are guided into behind the little wall onto the plateau proper, where you do again confirm that Ardencrest really not that big. The buildings out here seem to be mostly meeting places. There do seem to be workshops, a couple of market-like structures that are mostly like pavilions with temporary shops set up. Although the pavilions where the shops are not really that full. There are a couple of stands selling fruit and whatnot, but they do have space for far more than there currently are. It does seem that the majority of Ardencrest is in the actual mountain, as in the back of the city or the village is another building that, well, is not only adjacent to the rest of the mountain, but seems to be very much an entrance into the, not only the peak, but also the lower depths. After a few moments after entering the city, the little clockwork drake comes back and again tries to catch mostly Fancy's attention, as it seems to have another direction in mind now that it has successfully led you to the place where you wanted to go. Flying around in circles, then flying off into a direction just to come back again, fly another circle, fly into the direction again, ad infinitum, or however that saying goes.
Maybe it's broken.
It's basically the same behavior that it used to show the different nooks and crannies and more or less hidden stairways that did make the ascent far easier than using climbing equipment and such. The path up to Ironcrest isn't exactly fortified or a real road. It's more like stairs here and there that make the ascent easier. And those were definitely shown to you by the creature.
So maybe it's not broken.
That would be hard to tell without a mechanical background.
Perhaps I'd expect some sort of reward.
That's it. Why? It's not performing any of the rewarding hand gestures or dances. It's circling around us and then flying in a direction and then coming back and flying in that same direction.
I'm not familiar with it's
I
just
suppose we should simply follow it.
Following the creature
Go ahead.
Following the creature does seem to do the trick, as it, well, keeps flying in the direction, but stops doing its circles, and does stay in sight, letting you follow rather easily. Its destination seems to be one of the larger outdoor buildings. From the outside, it looks very much like a workshop of sorts. There's a pretty much oversized metal anvil outside, a flat stone circle-like looking area with inscriptions that probably have some sort of meaning, maybe even some sort of arcane use. And as all of the buildings here pretty much, a large oversized door that is currently closed. But that is exactly where the little creature is flying towards, landing right in front of the doors, and then looking back towards you.
But this isn't my house. I can't just open these doors.
Is there a sign or something?
There's no real sign. It doesn't seem to be a public shop or anything, but rather perhaps the home of someone.
Graham will open the door for the thing.
Opening the door reveals, well, the inside of the building, first of all. A large, reasonably open space. And while it is not exactly messy, it isn't clean either, with lots of shelves, with lots and lots of weird and different things. Gems of different sizes, crystals, gears and wheels and wires, and just, well, very interesting looking junk would be the best summary. As well as presumably its owner. A perhaps not quite as large a Warwick, but getting there. As there's a Golden currently kind of coiled up in the room looking towards the entrance, having lifted her head as you entered. She, well, seems rather old. That is even something visible to those who might not be familiar with how to tell these things. Cracked scales, not exactly graying, that of course means something else, but having lost a bit of its golden luster. As the creature nonetheless seems rather pleased at this interruption. Let's move you up here.
Does the little thing crawl into, like, does it go in the door?
The Little thing goes inside with you and lands on the head of this gold tenetum.
I was about to say that if it went in, we might just like give a slight wave and leave. But well, I guess we go in.
The large head swivels towards you, but mostly fancy, really, as a toothy smile appears, and she says, "Ah, I do find myself in the awkward position that I know who you are, I know what you are like, but I have yet to actually hear your name. But first of all, let me get something to drink, shall I? You must have had a difficult journey."
Fancy smiles. Thank you.
I am Amaranth. I do have the title of Magesmith, but perhaps enough about me. You are the ones who have taken much on you to assist me. I know of your exploits, I know of the dangers you faced, and I do feel that you did bring what was taken from our communities. She looks at you expectantly.
I do not think I have everything that has been taken from these communities, but there are some things I hope to return.
The smile broadens again. There are not many who would have done what you did.
Well, if there were many, then they would all be out of luck, because then there would be far more people than there would be relics to return, and I would not have to return them anyway, because they would be back here.
She nods in a sort of, I concede your point, as she turns around, walking over to a water fountain, really, sort of sink, and seems to be filling a large bucket with water that she then puts on a stove, really. She then turns back to you. Well, your motivation behind your actions is clear, yet I do think that a reward would be appropriate. Most, I believe, would have taken these treasures, either made use of them. Of course, I did try to make that more difficult, making these magic items slumber, unusable, really. Others would have simply tried to sell them, perhaps even successfully, and I would have likely never seen them again. Of course, I am afraid that returning these might prove more difficult than you think, since, well, some of these items never had an owner in the first place. Others, I believe, have left this world.
The hope was to return these particular items to those who would be most fitting for them. Understandably, the mercenary companies that raided through the mountains may have destroyed those communities. But I figured the best place to bring them would be here instead of where they were.
I do believe that myself is the most appropriate person to return these to, considering that I happen to have made most of them. Not all of them, of course. I would not take credit for those that others have made, but would you mind if I took a look?
No? Like, Fancy, shuffles, ahead. Sort of like, she's in this, fog process where it's like, I remember getting on a boat and now I'm, an ardent crest and, it's all a haze for her. But that's okay, because Fancy's used to operating under situations that would make me lose my mind. And Fancy, without introducing herself or giving her name, will take off her backpack and open it and rummage through. Let's see, where was it? There was this. Let's sets that down. This was a painting. Sets that down too, and slowly begins to like stack the relics and icons next to each other.
Yeah, most of the treasures as they were recovered from the vault of Grenov are basically trinkets, symbols of sorts, different iconography. Others are more peculiar. There are cloaks and helmets and all kinds of things. Fancy must have had a very large backpack, but there weren't that many on the other hand.
It was divine interference that caused all of them to be able to mesh so well together.
Yeah. As the large golden amaranth gently picks up some of the items, the helmets and such, kind of nudging the items with only symbolic significance onto a pile, as she mumbles to herself quite a bit about who might have owned these, about how they have never found an owner. She then, almost in a slight panic, looks back towards the stove where the water's already boiling, but that doesn't seem to be as important anymore. She nods slowly. Do you know why the mercenaries did go through so much trouble to recover these?
Fancy like twitches her brow and like scratches her head and looks over at Graham.
Looks at Mage Smith and says you to think.
It's like, there was a letter along with the ring recovered from religious fanatics related to the fraud in the mountains to be delivered to this like group of religious extremists in like the Graves Order. You remember more than that, Graham?
He shakes his slightly and says, I don't think we know much more. They took them as related to something in the mountains. It could simply be an action by the Grey, I imagine. The fraud perhaps being, well, the Oracle.
Everything here came from a vault that this extremist man had in the city of Coppergate.
One of the Grey.
That does make a lot of sense, I suppose. There were more than these stolen, of course. Quite a few more, although... Well, a bit of context, I suppose. Since I did make most of these, many do contain a piece of me, in a sense. Some literally, others not quite so literally, but suffice to say that there's a connection between me and some. I do believe that you are wearing one of the ones.
Yes, Fancy was like in the process of like trying to take it off her finger. It was like stuck like... Oh, yes. Here we go. And she'll like lean and like set that down too.
Oh, no. Keep it, please. I do believe that you were looking for the appropriate owner for these items that were stolen. I do believe that you might be one of them.
What? Fancy I like looks down in confusion and back up to the Tananim.
I know that you've recovered this stolen trinket and intended to return it with the others, but I do want you to keep this one. What is the point of making things if they do not get used?
Oh, well, I mean, that's what you want. I like the ring. Sure.
I do believe that it likes you.
Oh. And Fancy like looks down at the ring and smiles. Oh, all right. She like picks the ring back up.
But coming back to what I was wanting to say, I have a connection, some stronger, some not so strong, to my creations. These I felt approaching with you from the dock. I felt them all the way in Coppergate, although the connection was not as easy to maintain, presumably because it was in a vault. The other things that were stolen before these, they just appear to have disappeared. I fear that they have been destroyed.
Oh. Well, I don't understand why, if they were to be destroyed, why they would all just be collected and sent to one place. Why not just be... Why would the mercenaries not destroy them where they found them?
Well, when I noticed that I could not feel the stolen things any longer, I did something to these ones before they went out of my reach. I made these things you returned sleep. I could not do it to the ring, but the others. I essentially made them useless, powerless. It appears that that was enough to make sure that they did not want to destroy them. It makes no sense to me, though, because anyone who knows anything about these things would realize that they can be reawakened and would once again be useful. So if they simply wanted to make them disappear, destroy them so nobody could use them anymore, then why didn't they destroy these? Why did they store them? She frowns. No matter, these mysteries perhaps are not relevant any longer, since, well, frowns again. Either way, what I said, that creations are useless without an owner, I do insist on keeping my opinion on that regard. You, all of you, went through a lot of trouble to return these. I would like you to adopt one of them, each. She smiles.
Adopt?
Well, magic items are not just tools. They are perhaps not exactly sentient either, but very, very close. Each one of them contains a spirit. That is how every item starts, with a spirit, a sort of life force. With a mind, although a primitive one, motivations, some even ambitions.
Oh, so everything I brought back is alive?
Calling it alive would perhaps go too far, but something like it. Your guide, as she points towards the clockwork drake still sitting on her head, he seems very much alive, does he not?
Fancy immediately looks down at the items and says, "Oh, I am very sorry. I would have gotten a bigger backpack and packed you better if I knew that were true." Like apologizing to the items, like laying down.
The ring frowns at her.
Well, I do not think they are angry at you. Quite the opposite, in fact. So, in mechanical terms here, Amaranth would like to give each one of you a single one of these items that you've returned. I can give you a list.
All right.
I feel like that seems very appropriate at this point.
All right, Ederling, you get your very own.
Yeah, he gets one too.
Ederling smiles. I'm so happy.
First time in my life.
It's Someone
What?
give
I
me
gave
something.
Give it to the entire time.
You didn't mention that most of them were of some sort of religion importance, right? Or symbol.
Sorry. Now here's what this
Are
blows
there-
my guys. I've had this entire sack full of magic items with me the entire time, guys.
We could have been billionaires,
She
damn
doesn't
it!
remember it because she just accidentally
No.
bonded to all of them.
I
and has
don't
just-
have access, sheep.
That's right. We'll have to
I don't have
request
access either.
permission from you, sheep.
Yes.
You
I
have
have
not
done so.
allowed.
Oh, let
make it-
me fix that. Yep. No, what? Okay,
That's right.
there we go.
Should any
Yay.
of you have died on our way here, I would have been like, well, only for me. Manual
So what are the
of the light
rules regarding owning multiple magic items?
Sorry, what?
What are the rules regarding owning multiple magic items?
You
Because I
have
do
a-
have that dagger.
You have a number of slots equal to your level.
Okay.
These items are all adventurer tier. If there are any mentions of champion tier or higher, those just don't work for these. So essentially, you can have 4 magic items. Unless they are higher than your current tier, in which case they take 2 slots or more slots, but these are all adventurer tier. I do believe that none of you are even close to having too many magic items.
Nope.
As
We
she,
get one each, right?
Amaranth has said that she would like each one of you to pick one, Adeling not included.
Don't you want to have the manual of the light and flesh?
That dragon claw gauntlet seems almost fitting. You literally flay their soul.
Yeah,
I
all
haven't
of these
gotten that far yet.
items.
I'm reading about this blazing bacon armor.
Yeah.
It's beacon.
Oh!
All of these items seem to have some religious, what's the word? Iconography, meaning perhaps, but not all of them. And their association with whoever they were meant for, perhaps at some point. Well, there are varying. Wow, my vocabulary today is terrible. Well, they have religious connotations. None of them are only followers of this deity may use them. Amaranth seems to have the kind of mind of a creator who just creates things for the sake of creating things.
Nice cloak, the last one.
Yeah, I was gonna say that cloak. Does that work for every person?
Yep.
So that
Experience
claw,
full birdhood.
that claw is only AC. It can't be physical defense, 2 MD.
Nope. It's AC.
That might be something I could take.
Or you could use that on your smite evils.
Yeah,
That guy.
but you could use that too, though.
Don't you want the bacon armor, as it was called?
That's also something, yeah. But I don't feel like I'm getting hit enough as it is, so raising my AC is counterintuitive to getting punched in the face more.
I know you kids would have really appreciated that fucking potion belt. The campaign I ran.
Yeah, that constantly attempts to refill everyone else's drinks or potions or ration bags. Does it just do that on its own? Does it generate stuff?
The quirks of magic items are subtle effects on your character's character, as it were, but they are really, really
Yes,
subtle to non-existent. However,
go ahead.
just let me. However, if you ever go above your magic item limit, or strange things happen to you, which rarely happen, but can happen to you, the magic item quirks will take full effect, meaning that, well, they become one of your character's quirks.
Hmm.
But as long as you're careful and don't go crazy on magic items, the quirks really are just a minor thing.
More like guidelines, really.
Guidelines, yeah, perhaps.
It's a suggestion to your personality. Whenever you're using, say, the potion belt, sometimes you get the irrational urge to refill everyone else's drinks or potions or ration bags. But you can, like, shake your head and say, what the hell did that come from? No, like, I'm not doing that.
Oh, also the last cloak is missing its quirk. Let me quickly add that.
That potion belt is pretty good, yeah. But again, I don't think I get wounded enough to generally use that much.
I feel like if I had the potion belt, I would just drink all my potions away.
But it's not a matter of being wounded. There's things other than healing potions in life, Manikai.
Yeah, there is.
Looking at these things, the only thing I could see actually be of any form of benefit to Anrican would be the potion belt.
These also have default bonuses as well. For example, I guess the Martyr's armor is either light or heavy armor, Sheep, since it's not listed.
If it's not listed, it can be either, yes.
Yes. So say, for example, like magical armor has a default bonus where it gives you +1 AC. Like a helmet's default bonus is +1 mental defense.
Yeah.
The
Cloak,
girdle,
I think, is physical defense?
yes,
No?
cloak is physical defense. The girdle of the gods is a default +1 with recovery.
Okay. Well, I can wear light armor.
Without penalty?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's certainly something that everyone in this game can do, Manikai.
I guess that could work then.
Let's see. The Manual of Enlightened Flesh, I don't think books and tomes have default bonuses. Gloves don't have default bonuses either, i.e. the Dragon's Claw Gauntlet. The symbol, I do believe, provides a default bonus to divine spells. I can check to confirm that.
I think it works like an implement.
Yes, attack and damage, divine spell or attack.
I am, like, unnaturally attracted to this cloak.
It's cool, but it really wouldn't fit Graham. It turns like an old skeletal bird.
It would make spying so easy.
Then
Like,
reach
no
out
one
for it with a quivering hand.
No one expects the bird.
Is there anything you're particularly into, Grimmith?
No, there's not. I can wait for you folks to fuss out your
Pilfer.
details.
Because I'm either going to pick that cloak or the gauntlet. But you guys, I think, benefit more from the gauntlet than I do.
The gauntlet is good. It is good. It is recharge 11. It's yeah. I mean,
Yeah, so how does that work? You can use it, what, like once a day and then, or like once a long rest, rather?
yeah.
The like whenever you're in a battle or it could be outside of combat where you want to use it, you would activate it. It's either a free action or if it has an action listed, that's what it costs to activate it. And then after a battle, you would make a recharge roll. If you fail that recharge roll, you can't use it until you get a full heal up. If you succeed,
Okay.
then you can use it again.
Got it. And is it just like a flat d20?
Yes, it's a flat d20.
Okay.
Like whenever you make saves.
Yep.
You see something like the Manual of Enlightened Flesh, that doesn't have any recharge. That's always active if you're making a skill check that's based on a physical attribute. What you thinking, Talsiver?
Well, I was thinking something between the Girdle of the Gods and the amulet. The symbol of the fallen heroes.
Right, because the symbol has like a cool thematic thing, and it does give you a bonus to your attack rolls and damage rolls with any like attack powers or spells that you do that are divine in nature. So not your oracular like occultist stuff, but any cleric things like your spirits of the righteous.
Yeah, the one I don't really have right now.
Yes. The one you don't really have right now.
Yeah, I'm not really using attacking spells with my cleric list. It's mostly heal and buffing and other things. So I don't really, need something like that. So I don't really know. Plus the whole aspect of, the gods are often distant and caring. Well, I mean, my whole point is exactly the opposite.
Well, the gods are often distant and uncaring, but maybe you don't. Your god isn't, and that's your opinion on that.
Exactly. All of them.
That's why you're carrying the flag there.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, on the other hand, if you pick Girdle the Gods, then you're gonna have to define specifically, like, more so than what you already have, like, reasons how you would be able to benefit from, like, heal using a recovery whenever you perform an act pleasing to that god.
Yeah, and to be honest, I'm not even sure if I would use a duel for that. It's kind of I think because it's maybe it may be a bit too generic for her. The main reason, to be honest, is because I want to see more cats. I want to know more about the divine around here.
What you're going to be doing is making the god. Like, sheep isn't going to, like, reach
No, I'm
into his
fine
head
with
and pull
that.
out a god for you.
Yeah, it's fine with me. Don't worry about that part. The helmet is really good, though.
Well, if you have any, like, 2 or 3 favorites, why don't you just post them in the chat so the others can see where there might be overlaps?
Mm-hmm.
Just to speed this along a bit.
Do we have anything else?
I guess I'm either on the armor or the gauntlet, because the armor does say, now that I look at it, reading the flavor text, that it burns the holy light, which makes you the obvious target of the battlefield.
Yes.
The most obvious stuff.
So that would potentially counteract the... Yeah.
People want to hit you to shut off the light, like, fucking asshole.
I want a tank, basically. And if that armor helps me tank, then I would take that over the gauntlet. If it just basically makes people like, yeah, he's heavily armored, whatever, don't attack him, then I would rather get the gauntlet to make me more of a danger. So I think, well, fuck, he can hit my face, rent my soul, then I want to attack him. Yeah. But it's one of the two. Those would be my favorites.
Let's see.
Yeah, that said, Jake, while it's true, a falcon in a heavily populated city would draw attention.
Theoretically.
That could just be a crow, right?
God just told you what people will respond to. Maybe falcons just are, after all the predatory Tananim fucking snacked on the falcons. They don't come near the cities
Falcons
anymore.
are
Oh my God,
a local
falcon!
delicacies. Yeah, it's like eat it. It's like a dodo. Everyone just...
They're immensely endangered because fucking Tananim were like,
It's like having a bald eagle land, in the middle of your yard. Everyone's like,
I mean, I would just be astounded by that.
Actually, I like that thing now. Like, the reason why I'd be suspicious is because a Tananim would look at you and go, dinner time.
Yep.
I hadn't considered that angle.
Yep,
I guess,
it would be a halfling-sized falcon.
Aww.
That is
Oh wait!
big.
Oh Jesus!
That is a big
huge
falcon.
I thought I would shrink.
Nope.
Falcon
Well, you can
size.
fight in it. Yeah, you're like an animal companion.
Okay, never mind.
But Jake, it does give you at least 5 minutes of flight, which is pretty good. Hard to come by, being able to
Normally
fly.
takes a level 7 spell.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's pretty
Why
good.
Only 5 minutes doesn't even have doesn't say the limit.
If a
Out
spell
of
doesn't
combat-
have a limit, it's 5 minutes out of combat.
Yeah, out of combat uses for like standard action for in combat stuff is 5 minutes. Anything that says it will last until the end of battle, if you use it out of combat, it's 5 minutes.
You can
So-
communicate through gestures and adorable animal interpretive dances.
Very word nice.
Dancing around. Yeah. That said, I think it is a good fit for you.
Mm. The more people keep saying things, the less I want it.
Oh, wow.
I'll be quiet then.
I don't want to be a man-sized bird.
I thought you shrank too. That was news for me as well.
That is literally the most obvious possible thing. Like, hello, friends. Look at me. I am the 4-foot bird.
Well, you're still pretty awesome at infiltrating, considering how they don't take flying halflings into account whenever they design obstacles. So you still have that, like, damn, that castle wall up there, shit, that's 70 feet tall. How good are all of you at climbing? And Desmond's like, here I am, wave down.
Mm.
Flying halflings, man.
Shit, which path's the right path? This maze is stupid. Well, let me go find out. Took off into the air. Shit.
So, is anybody else thinking about the helm?
Not really. I mean, it's a nice little thing. It has a good recharge. You almost always get to use it again, but no.
It's a really
The two
good
others
thing.
are more interesting to me.
And I believe I can allow others to, roll basically their saves, but I don't think it works for me, so having something like that could be nice.
The nice thing about it is that it's at the start of your turn, right? So
Yeah, that's
if you have
the whole
ongoing
point.
damage, you don't have to take it. You can use the helmet, and
Exactly.
then they can not have to take that damage if you save, of course.
Mhm.
Or confusion, or being
Oh yeah,
stunned.
confusion's horrible. Stuns, ugh.
And the default bonus of the helm is to give you a bonus to your mental defense.
Oh, that's really good as well.
And that's what you're really missing, Gilgalad.
More
Not
method.
really, but more is better.
More is better. Calcifer, 2016.
So,
Alsper for president.
it's not always true, but in this case, it is. So, okay, let's see. What would I be missing from that? Is anybody thinking for the griddle?
No.
Griddle, sorry.
No.
Nice.
Jake, did you want the soul rending glove instead? Then
I mean, if nobody else wants it, because it is really good.
it is, and I'm between that and the armor. So if me taking, that would narrow down my choice.
All right, then. In that case, Jonas, no one picked either of those things that you're interested in. So which one are you interested in more? That way we can, you want the potion belt more or the martyr armor?
The armor would up my AC with 1.
Mm-hmm. And
Which-
if you go down, you can, because you're a martyr, you can grant your lofty magical AC bonus to someone else.
1 plus AC is not gonna help me too much. Thing is, potion belt. I mean, drinking potions as a quick action sounds pretty good.
That is something that is a recharge thing, so you get one quick action drink for that battle, and then you'd have to see whether the item would recharge to allow you to
is
do
a
it again.
Pretty high recharge as well.
Yeah, it is.
On the flip side, you'll probably get more use out of that than hoping to be knocked unconscious or slain with the martyr's armor. Right?
I mean, I would be the martyr's armor. I would take that for the +1 AC. That's
Right.
the only reason I would take that.
Cool. Which
No,
which
don't
is-
heal Enrican. I need the bonus. Oh.
Which is a reasonable option. So there we go. Do you know which one you want between the two?
No.
All right.
Well,
Flip
I'll
the
just
coin.
go ahead
Roll a
and take
D20.
the blazing beacon armor then.
And I'm
yeah,
taking
I'll
the
take
helm.
I'll take the gauntlet.
All right, because then that puzzle is at least dealt somewhat with. But that is an IP.
So
Copy
let's
in.
copy that. And I No, I was not wearing any kind of helmet. I had a hood. That's gonna be somewhat awkward now.
Just
Well, I
take that
guess the
off.
hood is gone. Yeah, did like that hood
Maybe
though.
the helmet is actually forged like a circlet. So you can have your hood still.
Maybe. But it's bad for the hair, So.
Oh no, magic item is ruining my hair.
That's an elven problem, definitely.
My two items actually synergize pretty well now because my dagger deals 2d6 extra damage on my first attack each battle, so I can just target MD with that one, and then theoretically we'll miss less.
Yeah.
And let's.
Right. We should visit this sort of dragon more often.
What do you guys think? The armor or the belt? What would you pick?
Do you feel like you have enough money to keep a healthy selection of potions? If you have, like, you can have 6 potions in there.
Yeah.
Not that you can drink them all at the same time, but that allows you to have 6 different types of potions.
And there might just come a situation where, like, considering how you'd probably get one use of that per full heal up, like, there might be a situation where you go, shit, I want to cast my Circle of Death and move, and oh my god, my body is dying.
Yep. It seems also something that Anarkin would have because of his like medical background and his wizard ring background and his necromancer background. These people have belts with potions in them, right?
Yeah.
It's
This
also
one is
Yeah.
magical.
and it's also stylish.
Mm-hmm.
More so than putting him in light armor, at least.
Yeah. Alright, I'll take the potion belt.
And as for me, because Fancy already does this quirk anyway, I will be taking the Martyr's Armor.
Yeah. Pretty fitting.
It ties into her. And the Girdle of the Gods, I'm like, so, like, the goddess of love and beauty. I don't want to get into trying to fucking apply that for recovery. That sounds like
What would she approve of right now?
in the middle of combat when I'm trying to, like, argue for recovery.
Yes, look.
Swing the bandit over and like give him a big smooch right on the
Yeah,
on the lips.
she,
You're like,
she
"Yeah, you
looks.
can
She
have
looks
That's
over. She looks
that's
over to
not
Graham and is like, "Kiss me," and he's like, "Well."
Love and beauty. You people are terrible. I don't know why Fancy spends any time with you.
Kiss me, you fool.
Well, that's me, not Graham.
Well,
Fancy wouldn't spend time
it,
with me, she'd leave.
you know, it answers the question if love can bloom on the battlefield.
No, it doesn't.
What? Of course it does.
You don't know what love is.
I want you to
Just
show
learn.
me.
Ooh.
Oh.
It's not my job to educate you, shitlord.
Oh, you.
Check your privilege.
Which one of them?
I love privilege.
Oh man. We're going there.
Well, all of you decided. Amaranth still sitting some slight distance away to give you some privacy, time to decide and such. She will nod at your choices. And someone look towards Dimmers, who has taken the Dragon's Claw gauntlet even. She nods slightly and says, "Ah, yes. I do believe that is the closest thing to a weapon I've crafted in a while. I did exclusively make weapons at some point, but..." She paused slightly. "I had to destroy all of them. And then I've changed my specialization, as it were, to these things, but I'm no longer allowed to make any of those anymore either. Well, I do hope that you like your choices as much as I think they like you.
So why isn't she allowed to craft things?
Dark mysterious backstory.
Anarkil would ask.
You can ask her.
Well, I was told that making things for the sake of making them is not a good way of doing these things, especially with items as powerful as these. Of course, I'm not a master at making these, but perhaps I'm one of the closest things to it. The weapons I've made were made with motivations that were inappropriate. The items I've made were made with no motivation at all. I've just made them to distract myself, to give gifts to those I like, but I never considered the consequences. Many were misused.
Looks at this potion belt, contemplates how it could be used for nefarious things.
There are many different communities who live here, you know, not only those following good gods. We make no difference. If you believe in something and wish to practice it without harming anyone in isolation, then you're free to live here. Some of those people, despite their beliefs, I liked. For some of them, I made gifts. And then our rules about not harming others and isolation didn't mean much to them anymore. Still, that was, at this point, perhaps 100 years ago, so... Well, the things that have happened did happen. I do hope that none of you make the mistake that were made back then. The mistake of using my gifts for nefarious means. Still, if all of you are even anywhere close to what I have seen your friend, she looks over to Fancy, here is, then I have no worries.
Graham is just like touching the glowing, slightly glowing armor, like big plate generally, and then with the like seared into it, like these smoldering runes that when activated they will flare up in bright holy light. But for now they're just sort of like dark embers you see in the middle of a dark fireplace, just sort of slightly smoldering. And she like picks up the different pieces, holds them and looks at them, and he's listening but doesn't really. He's paying attention to the armor instead, perhaps communicating with it some way.
That said, if you, in your travels, happen to come across any remains of that weapons I made and then had to shatter, I would appreciate them being returned. They are still out there.
How would we recognize them?
That should not be too difficult. Pieces of an item, pieces of a magic item still have pieces of the spirit used to make these. Simply touching them should have the same effect of touching a magic item. They are not hidden, they are simply broken. There's no way for me, or as far as I know for anyone, to track them down from a distance, but if you come across any, I do believe that you will know.
Gilgalad is gonna pull his hood, let the glorious hair, flow for a moment, and then he's gonna put on the helmet and give the gold quite deep actually, bow and say thank you very much for this.
Amaranth simply nods once. I do have a guest room, so do feel free to stay as long as you wish.
So, if, would, should I? Fancy looks down at everything. Should just leave these with you, and you'll look into returning these to as best as you can. Some of them aren't ones that you made, so. Or should I put them back into my bag and go looking again, or?
I do not believe that you will have much success in tracking down their previous owner. These were not simply taken, they were... Well, yes, they were taken, but by force.
They were looted.
Arden Crest is not in good shape. You may have noticed that on the way up.
Well, perhaps some of them are tied to one god or goddess. If there's a shrine that still exists, then I can just deliver the item there.
She frowns a bit. The people I've given my gifts to would not have let these gifts leave without them giving up their lives. I would not oppose to you trying, but it will be futile.
Oh.
I
can-
think perhaps the idea then would be that there might be brethren to these people, not by blood, but by thought and mind. Perhaps a similar group with similar ideals, following a similar god or goddess, could appreciate them as their owners once did.
That may perhaps be the case.
Would we then find these sects, or would you know where they are and be able to deliver it to them?
I do believe that I might be able to deliver these to people who might appreciate them properly, yes.
Okay, we'll look to Fancy then.
As
Think
it currently
perhaps that
is-
was what you wanted to express.
As it currently stands, I am not only the creator of some of them, but I am also currently the, I suppose, temporary ruler of this place.
Oh. Fancy looks incredibly awkward. Looks over to Graham.
Puts down the armor piece that he has half of the armor pieces on him now. She gives her a bow and says, it is an honor to meet you, Lady Mage Smith. I'm Graham. Excuse my rudeness and late introduction.
I do believe that you would have noticed if I did not already excuse your rude behavior. She does add a small smile to that sentence, but only a small one.
I would have wrecked you.
You came this close.
I'm sort of. I was going to say, apologies.
Oh, and that's
Terribly awkward.
that's Graham. That's Anrican Solus. That's Demez. Demez, and then over there that's Gilgalad.
I don't think I've called your name yet.
Oh, my name is Fancy. Fancy Man.
She nods and sighs a bit. I am only currently ruler in name, since the others are gone. All of those who could protect this place are, well, they left.
Oh.
I tried my best, but As it turns out, I am not a great ruler.
Is that why there's been so much trouble with the pier being destroyed and travelers to Arden Crest being attacked by gnolls?
Yes, that is something that would not have happened some years ago. There are few of us golds, as you would call us. But we did everything in our power to protect this place, and successfully. But
Well,
she who knows has taken those and left.
well,
I do not know where, I was not informed.
maybe we can do something to help. We have certainly worked in similar lines of adventuring before. If the gnolls or bandits have some sort of hideout or headquarters, perhaps we could hit it. Make it, if not take it out, make it sting for them quite a bit. Reduce the numbers, weaken them.
We would not just be helping Arden Crest. These gnolls may be in some fashion tied into the extremist group that paid mercenary companies to raid villages and steal relics. It may give us more information about learning more of them.
Anarchy nods. Sounds good to me.
I do believe that these gnolls you have encountered are, in fact, part of these mercenaries, if not more than that. They are well equipped, and it is not just gnolls. They have goblins controlling siege weapons. She kind of lifts.
And Fancy looks over to Anrikin, like demands, like, I have no clue what the fuck that is. That sounds terrifying.
Anarchy sort of raises an eyebrow while he tries to imagine goblin siege onions as probably the most unreliable constructions in the universe.
Well, she kind of lifts one of her wings and reveals a rather sort of nasty scratch.
Yeah.
She lowers her wing again. They are not as large as I believe some of the outsiders' toys are, but I do have to say that they are rather effective against...
The outsider.
Well,
Anarchy looks at the mess. You did this.
Fancy scrunches up her brows. How long have these pillagers and defilers been here in the mountains?
they have been here for many months at this point. They have arrived just after she left.
Fancy's one of her fists clench. One of her now 19 strength fists clench.
That's a lot of strength.
She works out.
Yeah.
Adventuring.
Stronger than Graham.
Adventuring, man. There's a lot to
It's
the
that
body.
youthful enthusiasm.
That's what it is. That's what it is. Okay. Yeah. Fancy's clenching her fist. She looks angry. Although she's wondering what the hell like goblin siege engines look like. She doesn't have much experience with siege engines.
Catastrophe on wheels. That's what they look
And
like.
she's certainly not as big as a Tananim, so she's looking at the wing going, oh,
Doom divers.
shit.
Yep, it's basically Doom Divers. Well, in that case, any information you can provide of their whereabouts and so on will be of great benefit.
I have seen the greatest concentration of them in one of the previously biggest villages in Ardencrest. One of the first ones, too. I believe its name is Vendleton. This was founded by followers of... She kind of creases her scaly eyebrows. Illyria, a god of gardeners and flowers and farmers. But they are all gone now.
Fancy looks even more upset.
Well, that sounds like the place we need to strengthen.
I cannot tell you too much about what is going to await you in this place, but I have seen many, many of those gnolls. I have also seen... So eyes sort of narrow and look towards Graham. A giant.
I'm sort of frowned slightly. I
Fancy looks to Graham.
heard there were very few left.
When they arrived with the invasion, they were the main reason why your people got as far as they did.
Scoffs a little bit.
Even the Silverton, who intended to introduce the survivors to their society in equality, could not bring themselves to accept giants into their cities. She looks genuinely angry at this point.
Backs away from Graham.
But just for a moment, as she kind of closes her eyes, looks down a bit. I apologize, but I do know who you are, Graham.
He nods, as I expected nothing less of one of your size and strength. Though I take that you have not tried to deal with me as sort of an acceptance.
I do believe that whatever the reason why you are back here can have multiple reasons, whether it is to finish what you started, or perhaps something else. Personally, I am hoping for the latter.
You really here to
Graham's
kill her, Graham? That's rude.
Diffuses the situation a little bit with a shrug and says, so far I have received terribly few indications of the first and quite a few indications of the latter.
She stares at Graham a bit.
So does Fancy.
That is good to hear.
Giants, well, they're effective. So saying, looking at the others and says, if there is one, then we'll have to be very careful when dealing with it. Not smart, most of them.
Fancy unclenches her fist long enough to like shake her, like scratch her hair, and says, if there's that many gnolls and a giant, though, can we five? Looks over at Graham. Can we do that?
Sure, it just depends on what kind of giant. I don't know the specifics, but I understand that there are many different types. Some were huge, like... Shake his head, it's like... Well, taller than the... than any
Taller
tree.
than most of us.
It begins. I'm not really sure how to put things in proportion to something that's so big. As others were not sort of about the size of amaranth. As I understand it, the smaller, generally, the weaker they would be. Much like the Tenonium. Well, some of them anyway.
This whole time, Dimas is looking up at you all sternly from the ground.
I have never actually fought a giant. I've seen them fight from a distance only.
Pats Dimas on the shoulder. He doesn't mean you. You know?
Mhm.
Well, it doesn't matter how big he is. If he's part of she or it or whatever this giant is part of these mercenaries who've been pillaging and destroying villages, then it'll be dead.
I do believe that the main force of these mercenaries are these gnolls, and they are spread around the area. They are, as far as I'm aware, not very smart nor social, nor do they work well in large groups. They must have some sort of leader keeping this whole organization running. if you manage to kill said leader, then I do not think that these gnolls would be a problem. I myself could go and pick fights with these smaller groups. It is the organization that makes them dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Like the bureaucracy. Fancy
Uh-oh.
like nods.
Yes. That's what we learned from this, I think, that bureaucracy is dangerous.
The gnolls are bureaucracy.
The gnoll bureaucracy. Well, alright, so some targeted hits. Cut the head off the snake, etc.
The head doesn't regrow because it regenerates.
Yeah, it's like a hydra, 2 heads. Oh.
Yeah, about that, Gilgalad is gonna have something to mention on this. Similar armies seem to be moving to the east. Perhaps whatever is leading them here is also following some sort of orders. Perhaps we're dealing with a bit more than it seems visible for now. Do you have any indication, perhaps, as to what kind of a leader could they have here?
I do not know. I do know that the attacks started with a band of human mercenaries, led presumably by one of their own. But the attacks changed over time. The gnolls, these large crossbows to shoot myself and others who have attempted to fight them out of the skies. The giant, of course. At this point, I do not know what is going on.
It is okay. It's also gonna be part of our investigation, I suppose.
Fancy rises up and like makes herself look even bigger by stretching and says, "Then it is settled."
He miss nods.
He gets up. No. And says, then I suppose we will be off.
To the guest room.
Away! What ho?
Before we go, something I would like to ask. Is there perhaps a place of worship for Aduial in this area?
Not in Arden Crest, as in here. In the area, I do believe that there at least used to be a small collection, although most of Aduil's worshippers, I do believe, have decided to stay in respite.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
This
indeed.
place is only for those who do not like the troubles of civilization, of society, of progress. Many of those who settled here fled, as it were, as those who saw them practice their religion wanted to make profit of them, wanted to force them to not sacrifice the wares they would make to their deities, but instead sell them. Things like that. I do know that the people who have followed Illyria, those were among the first to come here. They did not like being annoyed by those who would want to hire them as gardeners for their private gardens. They did not like the idea of privatized beauty. And so they left to the place where they would know that they would get protection without interference.
He will nod and say, "Well, I didn't really expect it, to be honest." And turn to the rest of them. Shall we?
Fancy doesn't need your permission to go to the guest room.
To the guest room? Oh,
To the guest room.
yes, sir. If there is a guest room.
Yeah, there's the guest room. She will show you
If-
just up a small wooden spiral staircase.
Yes,
If
and-
we are
room with
invited
multiple
to the
beds.
guest room.
yes, yes, we were invited to it. That's how I
Yep.
knew it existed,
Yeah, okay, that explains it.
as advertised.
Well, when the others leave to the guest rooms, Anakin will approach Amaranth.
The cup of tea that Enrican poured for Fancy, like left untouched and
Yeah.
just sitting there.
Yeah, well,
Graham,
Maybe.
walks to the guest rooms. A little bit brooding at this point still. You know. Yeah. A little brooding.
he looks at Amaranth, makes a bow, and says, "Lady Amaranth, if given your expertise and vast knowledge, perhaps you could provide some insight into somewhat of a problem that I have found myself involved in."
What might said problem be?
He rummages around and puts the dagger in front of her. This.
She almost looks like she wants to take a step back, but then kind of catches herself, looks at it, looks at you. I see. I have heard of these creations. There are a few of these identical.
He frowns. It leeches from me, and I find it inconvenient, to say the least.
Mm. She kind of prods at it with one of her claws.
Mm-hmm. I have heard that these items can be destroyed. The enemy, for instance, is somewhat involved in such processes. I have not found my way to Crimson Peak, though. But since you, quite seemingly, are skilled at creating magical items, and as you said yourself, weapons in the past, I was hoping that maybe you could give me some insight into handle this problem.
The weapons I made, I shattered so that they may not be used again, yes, but I never did fully destroy them. This, however, is weak. It is the same spirit used over and over and over again for the same item. A mass production without heart. I do believe there may be a way to destroy this, but it will require some danger.
Anakin
Well,
nods.
the main ingredient to every item is its spirit. I could free that spirit, and if you destroyed it, the item would become just what it is. A dagger, nothing else.
Is there any way to shackle the spirit to make it stop doing the draining it does?
You would have to destroy it. With
Sounds
swords and spells. It would not have a physical form per se, but I could give it a physical form. For moments at least. And if you then destroy said physical form, the spirit too would be gone.
Nods. I see. Well, in that case, I thank you for your insights. I will consider it.
She nods.
Picks up the dagger and sheaths it at his belt again. And then he'll make his way to the guest rooms, slightly coughing. And I guess we rest.
So you do. The guest room is something that Dimmers wouldn't mind, but the others of you, the ceiling is rather low, and it's decorated a bit with nightstands, with different vases on them, with different flowers and motifs. But the beds are just pretty ordinary wooden beds. It's good to rest in. Not really anything fancy or anything meant for guests of a high status. But they're definitely appropriate to rest in. So you can take a short rest, and morning comes whenever you will it.
Grim is brooding a little bit more in the night, you know? Because the dragon did seem to pose a question to him that he has sort of put off for a long time about the possibility of his existence here. There are really, well, two distinct possibilities. One being that he's here, as she said, to finish what was started. And another one would be that he isn't, and is here for some other purpose. Back when they left the old continent, well, his gods supported it, right? All the gods did. There was no other choice. Everything was dying. And so it was a war for survival. They brought giants. They brought everything they could. And they fought side by side to break this place and to take it over. Now he has, you know, as he looks to the side of his bed where he's been laying, because he doesn't really need to sleep, as he looks at the Etterling standing there, its jaw slightly open with like its rotted teeth, he thinks that perhaps now his ally, or the allies he calls upon, are not that different in style from those he used to have. And he used to pose that as a simple necessity of what they were doing. They were trying to survive, but if he's here to bring this continent under the boot of humanity, so to speak, well, then that would be somewhat troubling. And he spends the much of the night contemplating what he would do if he found out that was the case.
Anakin spends most of the night looking at the dagger laying on the table before him. He's sitting there staring at it.
Dimas spends most of the night sleeping.
Ah, the living. Well, I guess the next day we sort of set off. Is there like a shop or something in town? Cheap? Can we like... What's available, basically?
There are shops. Most of the shopping seems to have been done in the past below a rather large pavilion where people from the outside could set up their like markets and such. But there really aren't many there. There are some selling fruits and vegetables and produce and such things. Others selling, like, you know, jewelry. You can get a few things. You can get general equipment. There's certainly a store for that there. There's a wood workshop here. And of course, Amaranth has a few things, such as potions, if you were to want to buy those. She most definitely has runes, since she makes those herself.
Mm-hmm.
It really depends on what you're looking for.
So, when it comes to potions, it's healing potions or resistance potions, right?
Yes.
Those are the only two.
Those are the only 2 that are commonly available, yes.
Okay. Well, I do have. Let's see how many I have actually. I think I have 3 healing potions. Yes. I also have an elemental oil and a rune. Oils don't go into the potion belt, right?
No, you don't drink those.
Yes, resist giant. If talking to Amaranth would like, if he asks her if the gnolls and stuff have employed any sort of spells or like, do they use fire, acid? What type of like weaponry do they employ?
They seem to primarily use, well, bows and just maces and spears.
No magic.
She personally has not seen any magic.
Okay. Well, no point in buying a resistance potion then.
If you have a few and stick them in your belt, you can always use them as a
Yeah.
when the need arises, right?
I mean, there's like 10 different elements, right? So.
Perhaps. But we already have resistance to some of them. If they use necrotic or poison, right?
Yeah, I know we're resistant to that stuff. But like
Fire is probably one you're going to encounter at some point. Probably not holy.
No, I don't think so. Is there unholy?
That would be our like necrotic stuff, but we're already resistant to that. Right? I think so. I think if you're a paladin, for example, even if you're like or a cleric, if you're good or evil, it doesn't really matter. It's still holy because it's holy to you, right?
Yeah, it's not holy, it's divine, basically. It's,
Yeah, I suppose.
what
It's called
everyone
holy
gets.
damage, though. But we're not weak to holy.
Everybody's weak to holy.
Have we got any gold from the past several sessions?
No, not really. I'm still like
Don't think
eating
so.
off an old pile I have that I haven't really used for much.
Yeah, I don't think so.
We gotta wreck some gnolls and wreck some giant.
I think that was part of the reason why we went with the official party, so we can kind of have contracts and, you know, make people pay us.
Yeah, make some money,
Wait,
damn it.
did we do this wrong then?
Yeah.
No,
like,
we'll kill them.
Well, we can't really demand payment of like an old gold dragon. It's also the rule of the town we're in, and she's looking at us, and she's already been insulted by our rudeness, and she doesn't like Graham at all. So
technically she
She's
paid
really
us.
rude. I mean, I'm part of a minority religion, so
We
honest.
did get the magic items. So, I mean, let's say that she is covered, okay? But from now on...
Graham didn't feel it was the right moment to go, well, I'll do it if you pay me.
no,
yeah.
Anakin didn't feel that either.
Kill my brother giant.
But you know, she's a gold dragon. She's generous, and if we do this, she'll probably be very happy.
I mean, most of us are not really, you know, too good people, basically, to go like that. We need someone with...
What's
someone who can do it, someone who's gonna be... You know, my clients will not accept your job unless you pay them. And we're
It's
gonna
like,
be
no,
like,
no,
no,
we will.
you don't
Like,
have to do
I'm
that,
just saying
but
that.
he's getting paid to do that. So...
what was the price of a resistance potion? Was it like 100?
Let me check for you. I thought I remembered the page, but I don't. There you go. Potions. Resistance is 100 for
Okay.
adventure tier.
Alright, I'll buy a potion of fire resist. Why not? Fire is always something that comes up, right?
Surely.
Right?
Plus gnolls and...
We must now go to the far north. Damn it.
The land
Right.
of ever snow.
Yep.
Gnolls come from the desert, so if they have summons or something like that, they may be using fire. That kind of makes sense. Don't know about goblins.
Yeah, that's true. You're immune to non-magical fire when you do it. Just when they try to burn you at the stake again, you
Mm-hmm.
can just sort of sit there and laugh at them. With a futile attempt to use non-magical fire. The fools!
This is nothing.
Oh yeah. I mean, then after 5 minutes, it's not that funny.
Yeah, well, you know.
Oh.
Hopefully it's a
Hopefully
small
they will have,
fire. It
like,
burns out
you
for
will
5, you know.
Have found a way to let the
Yeah.
bonds burn away or something like that.
Probably want to escape after that.
Yeah.
Before that, actually.
So laugh for like a minute, and then you have 4 minutes to figure out a way to.
First minute is laughing. Alright, well, I have my potion. I'm ready to go.
Yes. How many potions do you actually have for healing?
I have 3 healing potions.
Oh, okay, that should be enough.
And I have an elemental oil, a rune, and a potion of fire resist now.
I have 2 healing potions as well.
Nice, thank you. Good.
So I have 2 more slots in my fancy new potion belt.
All right. You want to head out. So you can. There's no one at the gate stopping you. And as it turns out, the little clockwork rake following you again. This time seemingly with a different destination in mind.
So it's not following us so much as doing the same pattern. So we're the ones following it.
Basically, yes.
Okay.
It follows you out of town and then tries to lead you. Whether that's successful or not is up to you.
I think it's successful. I'll follow that.
I guess I don't want to have to like roll like a convince check. I mean, the creator of this wasn't amiable enough, I reckon.
The clockwork rake leads you basically down the path you came. The same stairways and such. Although it doesn't take long, some miles away from Ardencrest proper, that it does want to take a turn that you haven't taken before. Right next to a statue that seems to be a sort of a sign saying this way to that town. And the sign is in the form of a statue of 2 small yellow-bellied birds perched together in the silhouette of a heart. There are flowers on the bottom. There was perhaps a name at some point at the base of the statue, but that's gone at this point, eroded.
Fancy comes to a stop and quirks her head, remembering the gardener and flower motif, and gets sad.
The statue, unlike many others that you have passed on the way to the mountaintop here, is still mostly intact, although it does have scratches that would suggest that it was poked at a bit with sticks and metal. Some of the bits have fallen off, but it at least is still recognizable. And after showing you that bend, essentially, the little clockwork rake lands, sort of making odd motions as if trying to hide, and then appearing again, looking at you, and then doing the same motions, looking at you, and repeating that.
I think he wants us to be stealthy.
Crab frowns.
See, it says a little too loud. Oh, okay.
Sure, let's be stealthy.
At that affirmation, the drake flies away.
Oh,
Straight up, out of sight.
goodbye.
Fancy slowly tilts her head further up and up.
Well, I guess we can approach the village from, like, not going on the road, or we could, like, go in the terrain, maybe. Maybe there's, like, shrubs and boulders and stuff. We can sort of approach the village from behind, you know?
Anyone been in these mountains before today? Or yesterday? Or before we
No.
started?
No.
I mean, it shakes his head.
Suppose Graham has passed through them once to the way south, but no.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do it.
All right.
So just be careful for southern cliffs and like
It's time to stealth.
Sudden
Yeah.
what?
cliffs and hidden from the floor or whatever.
What?
Mountain areas can be treacherous. So
No, I don't. Tell me. How are they treacherous? I've never been up here.
Please tell me.
Well, I mean, if I suppose there are trees and bushes around, right?
There certainly are trees and bushes around.
And among those trees and bushes, there could be basically chasms and southern cliffs, basically, where you probably don't really see them, as easily hidden from the trees and bushes as they are.
Why would the trees do that to me?
It's not intentional, I don't think.
Don't think?
I mean,
So-
it certainly provides them some sort of defensive support, I guess, but
Defense. What do the
I mean-
trees need? I'm not trying to chop them down.
you wouldn't. Someone might.
So they hide cliff sides to protect themselves from people who try to chop them down?
Again, not intentionally.
Nefarious.
Fancy looks to Graham.
I just sort of doesn't really give him much of an answer.
Fancy looks more distraught. All right, you sound like the expert then, Gilgalad. Why don't you lead us?
Sure. I can do that, I believe.
All right. So, trying to approach the village without getting spotted. That sounds
Yes.
like a skill challenge to me.
Woo!
Would we be in a better position by openly charging or by failing to sneak? Is the real answer here. Real question.
Well,
I don't think there's a
openly
difference.
Charging. Like,
All right.
depending how many are there.
Well, let's try. Sure. Why not?
Might as well.
Okay. Fancy, after that absolutely horrifying information delivered by Gilgalad, is going to attempt to placate the trees and ask the wildlife, the flora and fauna, if they could be so kind as to not disguise cliff sides and treacherous terrain, because her companions would very much like it if they could travel without having to worry about tumbling down the mountainside.
Anarkin is a traveler of many roads, and he has, although he's not been in the mountains, he has walked many roads, and, during that time, he has perhaps ducked away from bandits and monsters, and although he's not an expert, approaching somewhere stealthily is something that he might indeed have done in the past. Maybe sneaking up on a necromancer's tower, maybe finding a way through a swamp. Things like that. He's a traveler, after all.
Okay, let's collect the ideas first. So, what would the rest of you like to contribute?
Well, Gilgalad is said to lead, and so he will. And he will, make sure that they follow a proper path, kind of, and don't actually basically fall in any, suppose, difficult situations, like avoiding, cliff sides and rocks and perhaps, what do you call this? Not the avalanche, the one with the actual ground.
Landslides.
Landslides, yeah. So yeah, he will basically make sure that they follow a kind of a proper path and a solid one, and it's taking them the right way, and it provides them as much cover as possible.
Okay. How about Graham and Dimas?
It is kind of Dimmitz's job to be stealthy at things, so he can kind of he can use his usual tactics of moving forward a bit, ducking behind things, keeping an eye on everyone else, making sure that he's following along properly, and just generally being sneaky, I guess. Trying to present as little of himself to any potential watchers as possible. Maybe even climbing up into the treetops. Although I guess the trees would not necessarily like that.
Okay.
So Graham is not particularly good necessarily at being stealthy, but he does have an aspect of himself that makes it easier, at least for things that are sort of known to use their predatory senses to see things. And that is that he is not really alive. He can stand sort of deadly still. He doesn't breathe. He doesn't really smell like a living person. His body doesn't produce the same odors as you would normally have. He just would then move and then just freeze and just sort of be there almost as a statue. Things that are used to looking for movement or to smell things or maybe even look for heat or some such will have a very hard time seeing him or finding him.
Okay. So let's do the rolls basically in order. Fancy, I think, was first.
Yes. Fancy has no background for befriending and asking for trees and shrubberies to help her in her quest to not fall down the mountain. No background. Never fucking tried this before.
Which stat would you use?
Well, she would use charisma, of course.
All right.
She's trying to befriend the trees so that they will at least assist in the, obviously they're not going to become good friends. She doesn't have the time for that. But at least, the trees will be predisposed to not have them fall and tumble down the mountainside, because that would make a lot of noise, and that would be awfully dreadful, and she would rather it not happen.
I like it.
All right.
Okay. Telspur?
Okay, let's see. Well, traversing through somewhat difficult terrain, suppose could be a chapter for his training, but there aren't really many mountains there, so yeah. I'm not sure I can apply any background either, to be honest.
Okay, then just wisdom.
It's wisdom, yeah. Okay, let's go for a good roll then. Yeah, here's wisdom. That's good. Wow.
Also, Jonas, what did you use for yours? What background and what ability?
Travel over many roads, and I use dexterity.
Dexterity. Okay, because you said you cast zombie form.
Yes.
That's probably something you would have to do before starting the process of going there.
Yeah, I did. I mean, the roll was bad anyway, so.
So it would have a penalty again, because I believe it has a penalty on dex checks.
Yeah, it's like a
-5. Yeah,
so, I mean, I failed the roll anyway, so I didn't think it mattered.
Okay. I mean, if you fail by... The amount you fail by does matter.
Okay,
But-
I thought I didn't know that actually mattered.
Alright. Dimas?
Yeah, I will use my Spy for Hire background and dexterity.
Okay.
I was checking to see if my background was 4 or 5.
Alright. And... Graham.
Well, being good at appearing dead, is, I don't know, like, I guess charisma? What makes the most sense?
Being good at appearing dead. Yeah, sure.
I don't think it's something he's really done a lot enough to justify anything, so I'll just do that, yeah. Hmm. Oh. Well, wouldn't have mattered anyway then.
All right. Well, as it turns out, Fancy seems to be mostly talking to those trees that Dimas is currently hiding in, which makes for a very good team. The two do make it to the edge of the town pretty much undetected, going a slightly different route from the one that specifically Enrican and Gilgalad are suggesting to, well, each other and Graham. And you very quickly do come upon opposition really, which does spot Enrican, Gilgalad, and Graham immediately, whereas Dimas and Fancy still undetected. Let me move you.
Oh God! Ah, my body's being torn through time and space.
I can't feel my
The magic
body.
item you had was cursed!
I can't see anymore. It took my eyes. Ah,
It's so dark. Mommy!
I don't think my eyes count as worldly goods. I kind of need
We
those.
threw them away. That's a dark twist to the martyr armor.
It says cast away unneeded worldly goods. Damn it! What am I supposed to do?
Ah!
Okay. This makes me feel tiny.
Mhm.
So
It
tiny.
is,
These thick
it's a fairly
lines.
large area. Yeah. Show you what to see, and then we'll go into initiative, because part of you have already been spotted.
Oh no.
Initiative.
Alright. Where am I?
Siege
You are
crew
done.
goblet.
Oh, there we go. I was zoomed out too far.
Yeah, what is in the sort of, not exactly center, but close to the center of the reasonably small village seems to be mostly a collection of gnolls, about perhaps fewer than have attacked you initially. But in addition to those, they have smaller greenish creatures that are easily recognizable as goblins, standing next to large crossbows on wheels. They were pointing those things mostly upwards, looking around, but as some of you bumble into view, they aim them towards you.
So it's a plaza, right?
It's basically a plaza. These buildings are still intact enough to block, to maybe be used as cover. This building is completely level. There's only this arch standing over here.
So is there any difficult terrain about it, or is it just...
Crossing through this ruined building, for example, would be difficult terrain. This one too, but this one, not exactly.
Alright.
So the crossbows, do they count as enemies, or are they manned by the goblins and cease to function when you kill them?
The crossbows are manned. They do not have their own initiative, but mechanically, they can be used by them.
Okay.
The goblins have lying next to them, or like leaning next to the crossbows. They do have spears too.
Okay.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3. Just making sure that I got all of them. Yes. Still missing someone in the initiative.
That'd be
Dennis.
Oh, yep. I always forget.
Well, that makes sense. Demez was too busy, like, being pleased about how awesome he is.
Yeah.
Let's see. All right. One of the goblins lets out a squeaky cry of alarm, swivels the wooden construction it is currently manning towards the group to the south, and will let it loose essentially. It can reach you, although it will have a -2 penalty at this range. Shooting at Energon and missing terribly. The bolt
Yep.
expanded. It will have to be reloaded now.
Goblin's like, what the fuck is that thing?
Yeah, that is the proper reaction, I think.
Yeah, he kind of shot it before it finished swiveling around towards you, and it just bumped off the ruined pillars to your side.
Well, I guess we just need to kill all of them, right?
Yes.
Like that's our
Yes.
goal. I don't see a giant, so
No,
I
I don't
guess
see a
that's something.
giant. Maybe he's sleeping.
Maybe that's certainly a possibility. Well, it would almost be dumb not to use a spell at this range. So, guess I will do the summon horror and try that out.
Yay!
As Graham it's out a sort of, now we've been discovered, he can stop doing this and just sort of instead sit into a lurch, as he calls, forces of Orgil with me, charging in to the battle. So then we cast a spell to call upon a creature